Street child asks Neil Diamond for an autograph, and his reaction moves everyone. A dirty kid with torn clothes approaches one of the biggest music stars in the world. Everyone expects security to push him away. But what Neil Diamond does next will restore your faith in humanity. You'll see how a simple act of kindness changed a boy's life forever. How this moment became one of the most beautiful stories in music history. How Neil Diamond proved that fame doesn't have to change who you are inside. And how one autograph turned into something much bigger than anyone could imagine. A street child asks Neil Diamond for an autograph, and what happened next brought tears to thousands of people. It was a cold November evening in New York City, 1997. The streets of Manhattan were crowded as always, thousands of people rushing home from work, tourists taking photos, street vendors selling hot dogs and pretzels. The city that never sleeps was alive with energy and noise. Outside the Beacon Theatre on the Upper West Side, a massive crowd had gathered. Neil Diamond was performing that night, one of the most successful recording artists of all time, with over 130 million records sold worldwide. Sweet Caroline, Cracklin' Rosie, Song Sung Blue, America. Songs that had become part of American culture, songs that everyone knew, songs that brought joy to millions. The concert was sold out. 2,700 seats, every single one occupied. Fans had paid hundreds of dollars for tickets. Some had traveled from other states just to see Neil Diamond perform live. Outside the theater, limousines were dropping off well-dressed people, women in elegant dresses and expensive jewelry, men in tailored suits. The atmosphere was glamorous, sophisticated, exactly what you would expect for a Neil Diamond concert in one of New York's most prestigious venues. Among the crowd of wealthy concert-goers was a boy, a street child. Nobody knew his name, nobody knew where he came from, nobody knew his story. He looked about 11 or 12 years old, though it was hard to tell. Malnutrition and hard living can make children look younger or older than they really are. The boy wore clothes that were 3 sizes too big, probably donated or found in a dumpster. His pants were held up with a piece of rope instead of a belt. His shoes had holes in them, and you could see his dirty socks through the tears. His jacket was thin, not nearly warm enough for a November night in New York. His face was smudged with dirt, his hair uncombed and matted, his hands black with grime. The boy stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the fancy people arrive. He had been on the streets for 2 years. His mother had died of a drug overdose when he was 9. His father had disappeared long before that, nobody knew where. The boy had bounced around foster homes for a while, but he kept running away. The streets were hard, dangerous, cold and hungry, but at least on the streets he was free. At least nobody hit him. At least nobody locked him in closets when he misbehaved. The boy survived by begging, by collecting bottles and cans for the 5-cent deposit, by eating food from dumpsters behind restaurants. He slept in subway stations when it was too cold, in parks when the weather was mild, in abandoned buildings when he could find them. It was a terrible life for a child, a life no kid should have to live. But it was his life, and he had learned to survive it. That November evening, the boy wasn't there to beg. He was there because of a memory of his mother. Before the drugs took over completely, before she lost herself entirely, his mother used to sing. She had a beautiful voice, warm and sweet, and her favorite song, the song she sang more than any other, was Sweet Caroline. She would sing it while cooking dinner, while cleaning the apartment, while tucking him into bed at night. Sweet Caroline, good times never seemed so good. The boy associated that song with the good times, the brief periods when his mother was clean and sober and loving, when she actually felt like a mother. After she died, the boy couldn't listen to that song without crying. But recently, something had changed. He heard Sweet Caroline playing on a radio in a coffee shop, and instead of sadness, he felt warmth. He felt his mother's presence. It was like she was there with him, singing, smiling, telling him everything would be okay. The song had become a connection to her, a way to keep her memory alive. The boy had learned that Neil Diamond, the man who sang Sweet Caroline, was performing at the Beacon Theatre. He didn't have money for a ticket, of course, didn't even have money for food that day. But he wanted to be near the theatre, near the music, near the man whose song connected him to his dead mother. So he came and stood outside, watching the wealthy people arrive. hoping maybe he could hear some of the music from outside when the concert started. Security guards were everywhere, making sure the homeless and panhandlers stayed away from the theater entrance. The venue wanted to maintain its elegant atmosphere, didn't want the rich patrons to be bothered by street people asking for money. One security guard, a large man with a thick neck and cold eyes, noticed the boy standing there. Walked over and told him to move along. "This isn't a place for you, kid. Get lost." The boy moved back a few steps but didn't leave. The guard glared at him but didn't push it further. As long as the kid wasn't actively bothering anyone, it wasn't worth the hassle. Then something happened. A black limousine pulled up to the theater entrance. The crowd began to buzz with excitement. People pressed forward trying to see. The limousine door opened and Neil Diamond stepped out. 66 years old but still handsome, still charismatic, still radiating that star quality that had made him famous. He wore an elegant black suit, perfectly tailored. His silver hair was neatly styled. He smiled at the crowd, waved, started walking toward the theater entrance. Fans screamed his name, held out photos and albums for him to sign. Neil Diamond was known for being good to his fans, always taking time to sign autographs and pose for pictures before shows. He moved slowly through the crowd, signing, smiling, shaking hands, making small talk. This is what separated the good celebrities from the bad ones. The good ones remembered that fans were the reason for their success, treated them with respect and gratitude. Neil Diamond was definitely one of the good ones. The boy watched from the back of the crowd, watched Neil Diamond signing autographs for well-dressed fans, watched him laughing and joking with them, and suddenly the boy had an idea, a crazy idea. What if he could get Neil Diamond's autograph? Not to sell it, not for money, but to keep it, to have something tangible from the man who sang the song that connected him to his mother. It would be like having a piece of his mother to carry with him always. But the boy had nothing to sign. No paper, no pen, no album cover, nothing. He looked around desperately, saw a discarded coffee cup on the ground, picked it up. It was dirty, but it was paper. It would work. Now he needed a pen. Looked around again. Saw a woman in the crowd holding a pen about to ask Neil Diamond for an autograph. The boy moved closer, waited until she finished, then quickly asked if he could borrow the pen for just 1 second. The woman looked at him with disgust, saw his dirty clothes, his grimy face, clutched her pen protectively and said no, moved away from him like he was diseased. The boy felt shame burning in his chest, but he didn't give up. Asked another person. Same reaction. Asked a third person. This time a man actually laughed at him, a cruel laugh that said, "You don't belong here, street rat." The boy felt tears starting but forced them back. He wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of these people. Then someone tapped his shoulder. The boy turned around and saw an elderly woman, probably in her 70s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She held out a pen. "Here you go, sweetheart." The boy took it with trembling hands. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The woman nodded. "Good luck." The boy clutched the pen and the dirty coffee cup and started pushing through the crowd. It was hard. Adults didn't want to move for a dirty street kid. Some actively blocked him, not wanting him to touch them. But the boy was small and determined. He squeezed through gaps, ducked under arms, pushed forward with single-minded focus. He could see Neil Diamond about 20 feet ahead, still signing autographs, still smiling. Security was starting to move him toward the entrance. The concert would start soon. But there was still time. Just a little more. Just a few more feet. The boy broke through the front of the crowd. Suddenly he was right there, just 10 feet from Neil Diamond. But between him and the star were 2 large security guards. The boy tried to move forward. One of the guards immediately put a hand on his chest. "Stop right there, kid." The boy looked up at the guard with pleading eyes. "Please, I just want an autograph, just one autograph, please." The guard looked at the boy's dirty face, his torn clothes, the coffee cup in his hand, shook his head. "Nice try, kid. You're not getting near Mr. Diamond looking like that. Now move back before I move you back." The boy's heart sank. He was so close to something that would mean the world to him. But the guard was right. Who was he? Just a dirty street kid, just a nobody. Why would Neil Diamond want to give him an autograph? Why would someone that famous even look at someone like him? The boy started to turn away, defeated, tears finally starting to fall down his dirty cheeks. But then he heard a voice he recognized from 1,000 radio plays. "Let him through." The boy looked up. Neil Diamond was looking directly at him, had seen the whole interaction with the security guard. The guards looked uncertain. "Mr. Diamond, this kid is filthy. He's probably trying to scam or—" "Let him through, now." The voice was firm, commanding, not angry but absolutely certain. The guard stepped aside. The boy couldn't believe it, walked forward on shaking legs, stood right in front of Neil Diamond. Up close, the singer was even more impressive, tall, elegant, with eyes that were kind and curious. Neil Diamond looked at the boy, really looked at him, saw the dirt and the torn clothes and the malnourishment, but also saw the hope and the desperation and the innocence that hadn't been completely destroyed by street life. The boy held out the dirty coffee cup and the borrowed pen with trembling hands. Could you please sign this?" His voice was barely a whisper, choked with emotion. Neil Diamond took the cup and the pen, looked at the cup, clearly the cleanest thing the boy could find. "What's your name, son?" The boy hesitated. Nobody ever asked his name. Nobody cared. "Tommy." His voice cracked on the word. "Well, Tommy, it's nice to meet you." Neil Diamond held out his hand for a handshake. The boy stared at the outstretched hand in shock. Neil Diamond, one of the biggest stars in the world, was offering to shake his hand. But the boy's hands were filthy, black with dirt and grime. He couldn't shake hands with Neil Diamond with dirty hands. That would be disrespectful. The boy pulled his hands back. "I'm sorry. I can't. My hands are too dirty. I don't want to get you dirty." Something happened to Neil Diamond's face. His eyes became shiny with tears. He reached out and gently took the boy's dirty hand in his clean one, shook it firmly. "There's nothing dirty about you, Tommy. You hear me?" "Nothing." The boy started crying then, really crying. Tears streaming down his face, making clean tracks through the dirt on his cheeks. Nobody had said something like that to him in so long. Nobody had treated him like he mattered. Neil Diamond signed the coffee cup. To Tommy, "Keep singing, Neil Diamond." But he didn't stop there. He saw the inadequate jacket the boy was wearing, saw him shivering in the November cold. Neil Diamond took off his own suit jacket, the expensive tailored jacket he had planned to wear on stage, and put it around the boy's shoulders. It was huge on the small frame, but it was warm and soft and smelled like expensive cologne. The boy looked up at Neil Diamond with wide, disbelieving eyes. Then Neil Diamond did something that shocked everyone watching. He knelt down to the boy's level, asked where he was staying that night. The boy admitted he had no place, would probably sleep in the subway. Neil Diamond's face showed pain, showed anger not at the boy, but at a world that allowed children to sleep in subways. He called over his assistant, a well-dressed woman with a clipboard, made arrangements right there on the street. The boy would be taken to a hotel, given a room for the night, given food, given clean clothes. Tomorrow morning, social services would be contacted, proper social services, the kind that would actually help, not just throw him back in the system. But Neil Diamond wasn't done. He pulled out his wallet, handed the boy $200 in cash. "This is for you, Tommy, for food, for whatever you need. Don't let anyone take it from you. Keep it safe." The boy held the money like it was a sacred object. It was more money than he had ever held in his entire life. He tried to speak, tried to thank this incredible man, but the words wouldn't come. All he could do was cry and nod. The crowd that had been watching in silence suddenly erupted in applause. People were crying, moved by what they had witnessed. The wealthy patrons who minutes before had looked at this boy with disgust now saw him differently, saw him as a human being who deserved kindness and respect. Some people came forward offering help, offering donations, offering to contact charities. The boy's life was changing right there on the sidewalk outside the Beacon Theatre. Neil Diamond stood up, looked at his assistant. "Make sure he's taken care of. I want updates. I want to know he's safe." The assistant nodded, already on her phone making calls. Neil Diamond looked down at the boy one more time. "You keep that jacket, Tommy, and you keep singing. You hear me? Life is hard, but music makes it better." The boy nodded, clutching the signed coffee cup and the jacket, unable to speak through his tears. Then Neil Diamond did something that made everyone watching lose it completely. He hugged the boy. This famous, elegant, wealthy man in his expensive clothes hugged a dirty street child in front of hundreds of people, and didn't care about getting his shirt dirty, didn't care about the cameras flashing, didn't care about anything except showing this forgotten child that he mattered, that he was loved, that he was seen. When Neil Diamond finally went into the theater to perform, he was 20 minutes late. Nobody complained. The audience had seen or heard what happened outside. When Neil Diamond walked on stage wearing just his shirt and vest because he had given his jacket away, the entire theater gave him a standing ovation before he sang a single note. He started the concert with Sweet Caroline and dedicated it to a brave young man named Tommy, who reminded us all what really matters in life. That night changed Tommy's life completely. The hotel room turned into a week at the hotel while proper arrangements were made. Neil Diamond personally paid for it all. Social services found Tommy a good foster family, a real family with parents who actually wanted to help a traumatized street kid heal. They lived in New Jersey, had experience with foster children, had love to give. Tommy was scared at first, didn't trust it, kept waiting for it to fall apart. But slowly, day by day, week by week, he began to believe that maybe this was real. Maybe this was permanent. The foster parents, John and Mary Richardson, were patient and kind. They didn't push Tommy to talk about his past. They just showed him love, gave him structure, gave him safety. They enrolled him in school. He was behind in every subject, but he was smart and he caught up quickly. He made friends, had birthday parties, learned what it was like to be a normal kid. But Tommy never forgot that November night, never forgot the man who saw him when everyone else looked away. He kept the signed coffee cup in a special box in his room, kept the jacket even though he outgrew it. They were reminders that kindness was real, that good people existed, that he had value as a human being. Neil Diamond stayed in touch. Not constantly, he was a busy man with tours and recordings and performances. But a few times a year he would call the Richardson house to check on Tommy. How's school? Are you singing? Are you happy? Simple questions, but they meant everything to Tommy. Knowing that someone as important as Neil Diamond cared about him, remembered him, thought he was worth checking on. It gave Tommy strength during the hard days, the days when the trauma of his early life came rushing back and made him want to run away again. Years passed. Tommy graduated high school, went to college on scholarships, studied social work because he wanted to help kids like himself, kids who were forgotten and thrown away by society. He graduated with honors, got a job at a youth center in the Bronx working with homeless teenagers. He was good at it, really good, because he understood those kids in a way that most social workers never could. He had been there. He had lived it. He knew what they needed wasn't lectures or pity, but respect and genuine care. Tommy got married at 28 to a wonderful woman named Sarah who was a teacher. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Tommy was a devoted father, determined to give his children the stability and love he had never had as a young child. He told them often that he loved them, hugged them constantly, made sure they knew they were safe. Breaking the cycle of trauma and abandonment was hard work, but Tommy did it. He became the father he wished he had. Through all of this, through college and career and marriage and fatherhood, Tommy maintained contact with Neil Diamond. The phone calls became less frequent as both their lives got busier, but the connection remained. Tommy sent Christmas cards every year. Neil Diamond sent congratulations when Tommy graduated college, when he got married, when his children were born. 2 lives that should never have intersected, brought together by one moment of kindness on a cold November night. In 2018, Neil Diamond announced his retirement from touring. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and could no longer perform at the level his fans deserved. The announcement made headlines worldwide. Fans mourned the end of an era, 50 years of concerts, of bringing joy to millions through music, coming to an end. Neil Diamond's final concert was scheduled for August in Los Angeles. Tickets sold out in minutes. Tommy saw the announcement and felt his heart break a little. The man who had changed his life was ending his career. Tommy wanted to be there, wanted to attend that final concert, wanted to thank Neil Diamond one more time for everything. But tickets were impossible to get and extremely expensive. Tommy had a family to support, bills to pay, kids who needed college funds. He couldn't justify spending thousands of dollars on a concert ticket, no matter how much it would mean to him. 3 weeks before the final concert, Tommy received a package at his house. Inside was a letter and 2 tickets to Neil Diamond's farewell performance. The letter was handwritten. "Dear Tommy, I've been following your life and I'm so proud of the man you've become. You took the second chance you were given and built something beautiful. I want you at my final concert. Bring your wife. These are my personal tickets. Front row. I'll see you there. Your friend, Neil." Tommy cried when he read that letter. Cried like he had cried that night 21 years ago, when a famous man treated him like he mattered. He and Sarah flew to Los Angeles for the concert, sat in the front row, watched Neil Diamond perform one last time. The concert was beautiful, emotional, perfect. Neil Diamond sang all his greatest hits. The audience sang along, cried, laughed, celebrated 50 years of incredible music. Near the end of the concert, Neil Diamond did something unexpected. He stopped between songs and told a story. Told the audience about a night in 1997 when a street child asked him for an autograph. Told them how that encounter reminded him why he did what he did, why music mattered, why kindness mattered. Told them that the boy was in the audience tonight, now a grown man with a family, working to help other forgotten children. Asked Tommy to stand up. Tommy stood, tears streaming down his face. The entire arena erupted in applause. 20,000 people standing and clapping for a former street child who survived and thrived. Sarah was crying beside him, so proud of her husband. Neil Diamond looked directly at Tommy and said, "Thank you. Thank you for reminding me what really matters. Thank you for becoming someone who helps others. Thank you for being you." After the concert, Tommy and Sarah went backstage. Tommy hugged Neil Diamond, this man who was now 77 years old, but still had that same kindness in his eyes. They talked for an hour, about life, about music, about family, about the journey they had both been on since that November night. Neil Diamond met Sarah, told her she had married a remarkable man. Tommy introduced his children via photos on his phone. Neil Diamond looked at each picture carefully, asked their names, their ages, what they liked to do, treated them like they were important, because to him they were. When it was time to leave, Tommy didn't know how to say goodbye. How do you say goodbye to someone who saved your life? How do you thank someone for seeing your worth when you were at your lowest? Tommy tried to find words, but they all felt inadequate. Finally, he just said, "I love you. Thank you for everything." Neil Diamond hugged him tight. "You saved yourself, Tommy. I just gave you a chance. You did the hard work. I'm proud of you." What do you think of this story? Would you have done what Neil Diamond did? Leave a comment below telling us about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. And remember, this story of the street child who asked Neil Diamond for an autograph and got so much more teaches us powerful lessons. It teaches us that kindness costs nothing but can change everything, that every person has value regardless of their circumstances, that fame and wealth don't have to corrupt, they can be used for good. That one moment of compassion can create ripples that last a lifetime. That children aren't throwaways, they're human beings who deserve love and respect and chances. Neil Diamond could have walked past that dirty street kid. Security would have kept the boy away. Nobody would have blamed him, but he stopped. He saw, he cared, he acted, and he changed a life forever. The street child asking for an autograph. The reaction that moved everyone. The jacket and the money and the hotel and the hug and the follow-up and the lifelong connection. This is what humanity looks like at its best. This is what we should all aspire to be.